Okay, this is the grand finale on the 2018 Goldwing DCT Tour that I just finished, and I officially finished it this morning. And I just want to talk a little bit about the uniqueness of this build. It was probably, well, this is the only 2018 Goldwing reverse trike in the world, and it's the first one, and it's the only one because I'm the only one who does this. And so this one's really unique in that aspect. This bike, when I got it, only had 5 miles on it, so it basically came directly from the dealership to me, and the people wanted to know if I could do the conversion, which I told them I could. And I knew there was going to be some unique challenges to this. One of them would be the steering, because it's got the double wishbone front suspension. Another one would be electronics, because this one is a it's got ABS, and it's an automatic transmission. It's the dual clutch transmission, 7-speed. And so I knew that was going to be kind of a challenging deal. As far as the attachment itself, I actually downloaded the drawings of the frame section, so I knew exactly from the start how I was going to attach, and I could verify that it would be structurally adequate to, under any conditions. And that really worked out well. It took some time because I had to start from scratch and make sure everything fit correctly. And I probably over-engineered it quite a bit, just because it's a new bike and you tend to kind of go a little bit overboard at first. But the fitment and the structural integrity and all that is good. And that was actually not that hard. It just was a little bit time consuming. I didn't have to put the third radiator in this, which I normally do on the Goldwings, because this one actually has the fan set up in the proper direction, so these won't overheat. In fact, if I leave it idle and stuff, and the fans kick in, they run for about 1 or 2 minutes and shut right off. So the cooling is really more than adequate on this model. The steering turned out to be a little bit of a challenge. I had to pull the steering stem out. I had to remove the fork assembly, and I had to build a bearing retainer and a fixture to mount the steering shaft to. So it was time consuming, but then again, I kind of expected that, and it wasn't anything that I didn't figure I'd run into. The two items that really kind of threw me for a loop was when I got this, pretty much ready for paint, I sent the body panels to my painter, and while he's working on that, then I take it out and test drive it and make sure, the brakes are good, the steering, the handlebars are square, and the front end's aligned, and I go through that procedure. And then I put a car tire on the back and all that kind of thing. It wouldn't shift out of first gear. It would stay in first, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to shift. And it dawned on me, because I had removed the front ABS sensor, it was getting its speed input from the front sensor. So what I did initially is I just moved that sensor to the rear wheel and just paired it up with the existing rear sensor, which fixed the transmission issue. Then it would shift just fine and everything, but then I was getting a T indicator, and the whole dash would just start to flash, and errors and all this kind of stuff. And what I figured out yesterday was the two sensor rings are actually different sizes. So it was actually showing a mismatch, and the machine was actually anticipating some sort of a slip. So it was kicking into traction control, and the whole thing was all goofy then. So anyway, so what I did is I took the sensor ring off the front wheel, I mounted it to the right front wheel on this, put the sensor on there, so electronically, this thing is actually a two-wheel motorcycle again. The computer should really not notice any difference. I did that, the thing worked great. The shifting pattern changed slightly, and it did improve one aspect where if I rolled on the throttle, it would actually downshift, which it wouldn't do that before. So It actually worked just like it's supposed to. After I drove about 2 miles, I got the assist light, the hillside assist, and the ABS started flashing. And then where it says tour, it filled up with asterisks, and that was flashing. And I was just kind of thrown for a loop. I thought, what is going on now? It was working so good, and it's throwing this code. Although it shipped fine, everything ran fine, these lights were just flashing. And I got through the manual and started looking at things, and what it said is I needed to, that's the indicator for when you need to initialize the transmission. Which basically what happens is you run it through a sequence of where it recalibrates all the shift points in your transmission. And you can do it just parked. You put the parking brake on, you go through a procedure, and it takes like 2 minutes, and it does a bunch of shifting and stuff, and then it returns to normal. I took it out and drove it about 5 miles, and no errors, nothing. It worked just absolutely perfect. So got over that hurdle. Just prior to that, we ran into an issue with the paint. We get all our paint through Color right now, and the paint they mixed for this bike was way off. It didn't even come close. So the first batch was defective. It had a bunch of lumps and stuff in, so we sent that back. The second batch was way off color, and I don't think they quite have it zeroed in yet. So in the meantime, what we did is my painter actually mixed the paint on his own, and he got her right on the nose, right on the nose. And especially when you get this out in the sunlight, you cannot tell what's factory and what's not. It's that close. So he did a really, really good job. And that was like 3 weeks of horsing around with paint and trying to figure out, because you can't buy paint anywhere. The companies won't sell you paint. Nobody will sell you the paint because they license every single color. And if you're not licensed, you can't mix this color. And so Color Right's the only place you can buy it, which really is really bad whenever you have like one company that you have to rely on. It really kind of narrows your leverage to nothing. But anyway, they're good. Typically their paint is 100% spot on. Just on this one, it just was not there. So hopefully they'll get that straightened out for people that are working on these in the future. So we ran through a bunch of those kind of issues, which was kind of unique to this build. Normally we don't run into problems like this, but this is such a different machine. It's got the CAN bus system, which is Connected Area Network is what it stands for. It's basically like the internet. It's all the sensors and the little mini computers that are remote from the main ECM. They're all they work off of a bus system. Just like USB ports on your computer, it's that type of deal. And it really makes it more expandable. In the future, they're going to have accident avoidance and camera systems and all kinds of bells and whistles they can add onto the bus. And that's the whole basis behind it. But it's really temperamental, it's very fussy, and it's really voltage sensitive. If the battery on this is like 80%, it will not start. It's a real downside though. You got to have a really good battery in these things, or it won't start, and the electronics will be all goofy and all that. So that's just something to be aware of. But this one really turned out pretty good as far as I think it really meets the goal which I really wanted to achieve, which was making it look like this came right off Honda's factory floor, and it's not an add-on. And I think that really worked out well. You can see there's some extra black parts that I added. Down here, you really can't see it, but I added a paint scheme to match the saddlebag there. And there's a little extra little wing at the bottom there. And then this little valance here kind of blends in with the sharp lines of the fairing. The smoke flames on the front are not really flames. They're more of a Lego style thing. But that actually blends in with that shape of the fairing there. So everything is kind of made so that it looks like this was their intent right from the Honda factory. And, you know, I'm pretty proud of it. I think it turned out every bit as well as it should have. Going down the road, I did a video here of the road test, and I'll put a link in the description on this video to that one. You know, what I thought of the bike itself, and how it handles, and how it runs, and how it shifts, and all that kind of thing. And she's pretty much a home run. I think Honda's got the right idea here. It's a more sporty bike, and you know, it's kind of like the Can-Am Spyders that way. It's actually designed as a sport trike for a younger person or young couple maybe that wants to do some light traveling and that, or across the country. It doesn't matter. It's just got a little bit of more of that sporty feel to it. And I think that's what Can-Am sought to do right from the beginning. And I think, and that really was my goal all along, is to have something that has more of a sport appeal. Plus these things are really good for, you know, unpaved surfaces, gravel, that kind of thing. It doesn't really bother them, and you can drive these things through, you know, any kind of road, as long as it's not, you know, like mud or something that Jeep has to go through. But like anything you would drive your family car on, this would handle just fine. And then that's kind of the premise behind the whole thing. But, you know, right now, you know, the no codes, it's coming up clean. I do have a TPMS error because there's no pressure sensors on the front tire. That's a real minor thing, and it's just something you got to live with. But the indicator does show the pressure on the back tire, which is the most important thing anyway. The front tires, you know, if they go low or something, you'll feel it, and you'll know right away you have to do something. The rear tire, though, you know, that can be almost flat and you'll never know it. But on the dash, it tells you exactly what the pressure is. So that actually works out just fine. I am getting an error right now that it needs a new battery in the remote. So, you know, that's fine. I'm going to put a new battery in there, but other than that, it's clean as a whistle, and the thing is like flying carpets right now. So I'm real happy that this one's done, and I think the owners are going to be real pleased. Hopefully they won't mind that I put 45 miles on this deal testing it. I never usually put that many miles on it. I usually put about 4 or 5. But this one I had to do multiple runs because of the ABS and the related issues there. As far as the handling, it's really good. It's really good. It handles extremely flat in the corners, which means you can, it doesn't lean, it doesn't wallow, it doesn't, there's no pitch and roll. And it's good in the wind. The wind doesn't seem to have much of an effect on it. I really like the way it just goes down the road. The transmission is awesome. I just drove this one. Then I get on my 2003 and drive that. And you know, there's some things I like better about the older ones. You know, they have better wind protection. I think the seats may be a little bit better. If the older one had the automatic transmission, that would be awesome. But I think that really makes this bike, it's really a joy to ride it. And it really takes a lot of the thinking process out of the riding. You can really focus on just enjoying the landscape and everything. You don't have to think about what gear you're in. You pull up to a stop sign, you know, and I have a tendency to pull up to a stop sign with mine, and I'm in 3rd gear. So then you sit there trying to weasel it into 1st so you can take off, where this thing just automatically is in 1st gear. And, you know, it's great. So it's just roses and marshmallow peeps. This thing is done. So it's a real feather in my cap, and I hope the owners understand that this is the only one like it in the world, and that's kind of a big plus. So it'll be interesting to see what their reaction is. So thanks for watching. I'll keep you up to date on any other craziness I come into here and decide to attack. And right now I'm doing this one here, which is a 2008. And I've got a blue one that I'm going to do. And that's a 2007. I've got a Harley V-Rod I'm going to do. I've got a Harley Davidson Ultra that's coming in here next. And then I think after that I've got a Yamaha Venture Royale. So like I say, I can do I basically am the only guy in the world that does this. I do any motorcycle. This is not a kit. People ask me if it's a kit, and I said, well, it's not a kit. It's a system. If you look at the framework on this one, that whole front section is generic, and it's modular. That exact section is the same as what's on this bike. And it doesn't make any difference what bike I do. The running gear is the same. The only thing that's different is this back part, and you can see here where the radiator is mounted. That's called the adapter cradle. That's unique to each bike and each bike model, but the front part is the same no matter what. And so that's where my patent is, and that was the invention. And I actually did invent that. I'm the first guy in the world to do reverse trike conversions, and I'm the only guy who does the universal one. So I get to brag just a little bit, but I'm not, I'm not all full of myself. Don't get that impression. But it's just nice to know that, you kind of leave your legacy, I guess. So anyway, we'll keep moving along here and do other stuff, and hopefully, like I say, everybody enjoys what I do for them. So thanks for watching, and I'll make sure I get a link in the description there to some other interesting things that are going on. So check that out too. All right, thank you.